Welcome to Brawny Conversations. I am Patrick Braun, your host. This podcast will provide our listeners with informative and entertaining discussions held with experienced people covering a wide range of topics. If you want to shorten your learning curve or just learn more about one of our topics, this is the podcast for you. Enjoy our discussion. Welcome to part 3 with our expert guest, Kevin Witt. Kevin played professional baseball for 19 years and was a first-round MLB draft selection. In this episode, Kevin will be providing insights on the recruiting process in baseball to play at higher levels beyond high school. And we're going to talk about baseball recruiting advice for both players and parents. And you are definitely an expert in this as you went through the process personally in your own life. You've gone through it with your 2 sons, who both are college baseball players, and then you've gone through this process with countless other players you developed. So let's just jump right in. And this baseball recruiting scene has grown so much that it's quite frankly becoming an industry. There are companies who put on showcases. There are recruiting services who offer website and coach contracts. College host recruiting camps. There are just so many options. Where should a player and a parent start with all of this?
So that's a good question, Patrick, regarding recruiting. And quite honestly, I really think that it begins as a freshman. And I say that because regardless of whether you want to be, an athlete in college or just a student, I think you have to create what I like to call a resume, right? Just like you have a resume if you're going to apply for a job. I call it the player resume because most of the time I'm dealing with athletes. And so right away you have kind of just a starting point, and it's your information. And every year you're updating that information and whatever accolades you're receiving on or off the field, volunteer opportunities, anything like that, you're building that resume. And so when it comes time to start sending out that resume to schools that you're interested in, it's all right there. It's got your transcripts, your test scores, links to you hitting, you pitching, whatever it may be, volunteer opportunities, coaches for select ball, all of it, all your information is there. And so I think that it's important for parents to start that process early. There's a lot of kids. And again, if you're really good, you don't really need that for the most part. I mean, yeah, you will need some of it, obviously. But I think where, coaches have to get really creative is those kids that aren't quite Division I players, and understanding what's available out there and educating the parents on what is out there. Do I want to just go play, like my oldest son is a good example, Preston, who's a senior at Southwestern playing baseball. Could he have gone to a small D1 and just wore the uniform and maybe had a chance to play by the time he graduates? Yeah. Or could he have gone to a Division III school like Southwestern and play right away, have an impact on the baseball team and also get a wonderful education from Southwestern. And he ultimately chose Southwestern, and it's been a wonderful decision for him. But that's what he wanted to do. Kind of like you said earlier, is provide them with all the information necessary, educate them on the process, kind of let, the kid make the decision for the most part. Right.
With a little influence, right? With a little influence.
With a little influence. It's you got to make sure you put your points in there. But I think that process starts a lot earlier than you think. And if you do the work early on, if you're great, you're great, and everything's going to turn out great for the most part. That I think finding that fit will be a little easier. But okay, if Division I is not a reality, what is my reality? And surprisingly, a lot of the kids that do have the good grades and all that type of stuff, it does open more doors for you, but you have to be prepared for that. I used to tell kids, I used to ask kids all the time is, hey, where would you like to go play? And it's Texas, TCU, A&M. And I'm like, it's like, hey man, that sounds great. But the reality of that is it's not going to happen. So I would always say, just go pick 5 schools, just kind of as a starting conversation point. Go pick 5 schools, 5 Division I, 5 Division II, 5 Division III, 5 NAI, whatever the different levels. Just go pick 5 schools that you might have interest in. At least that way there's a starting point for every level per se. Because, as a freshman, you don't really know where you're going to end up. Sophomore year, you kind of start to get an idea. Junior year, you should really have an idea. And then by the time you're a senior, sometimes some of these Division III schools and whatnot, you got to wait till, right before your senior year, during your senior year. But be prepared, sooner than later, and start to do the research, and because it'll be here before you know it, and so the flip side of that is I had Tanner, who is at the University of Texas now. He was, recruited by everybody under the moon, and we took our time with that process, and he ultimately ended up at University of Texas. He's a 4th generation Longhorn, and like you mentioned earlier, he's a high draft pick potential this coming year in the draft. So it's 2 completely different spectrums of the experience and the type of players. But it's every situation is very unique and very different. But the bottom line is as a player, as an individual player, and as a parent, you have to do the work, because the smaller schools, you have to do the work. You almost have to recruit them. And some of these college coaches will tell you that they just don't have the recruiting budget to go out and be at all these tournaments every weekend and see different players. So, you have to kind of seek out those schools that might be a good fit for you academically and as a fit for, athletically. And so that's the hard part, is finding a fit for those kids that are the D2, D3 in Ivy League schools. And quite frankly, that's the most fun, really.
Yeah, Kevin, as you're saying this, you're bringing back a lot of thoughts in my mind. And, I made a mistake with my boys. And, we did a lot of it right. But when it came to making the choice of college with my older son, he was an outstanding high school baseball player and outstanding summer travel ball player and the whole bit, but he really wasn't getting much opportunity, and we were really locked in on high academics and D1. And ultimately he made the choice to be a walk-on at a mid-major D1 program. And, hindsight being 2020, we now, if we could go back and do it all over again, we would have given JUCO a consideration for the early years, for freshman and sophomore years. And that's the path we chose with our youngest son. And, it's interesting. In my mind, I always had a bias against junior colleges, but I really didn't know what I didn't know. That was just a bias that I had, and it wasn't based on fact. It was just based on perception. In 2020, we had COVID impacting everything, and it impacted the baseball world. I mean, you've got D1 today. You've got, 22, 23, 24, 25-year-old guys still active and playing. And hindsight being 2020, JUCO is a really viable alternative. And now that I've been watching my younger son play in JUCO ball through the fall and now in the spring, what a great stepping stone it is. And it's a very high-level product, highly competitive. They face great pitching. He's going to get a ton of at-bats. And, my older son, if he had gone that route, might still be playing. He might not. No idea. But, it's a viable option. And the reason I'm making everybody out there that's listening to this aware of JUCO as an option is it's a great option you should consider. It's a very high-value, low-cost option that can get your child ready to go. And, my younger son, Jackson, if he continues to play, great. If he doesn't, he'll be able to get into A&M or UT based on the work he's done at a junior college, where he might not have been able to get in directly out of high school. He's a great student, but those universities require to be, top 5%. So we'll see. And there's a great success story. I don't know, Kevin, do you remember Stanley Tucker? Do you remember him?
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
So, right, great success story there. He's a little guy. He's, probably 5'9", 165 pounds. He was smaller than that in high school. And he, after high school, went on to play at Wharton Junior College, then went to New Mexico Junior College, and now he is at Texas A&M and just got to play in their opening season series, and is going to be more likely a center fielder at some point, and he's going to definitely contribute at the bat. So there's a tremendous opportunity out there. So as Kevin mentioned, there's all these different levels.
Yeah, and on the same lines there, like you mentioned JUCO, but so many people, when they hear D2 or D3, they kind of snub their nose at it, like, they're too good for it. Whereas I got news for you, there's a ton of tremendous D2, D3 baseball programs out there, and not only good baseball programs, but a wonderful education to get. And
You're 100% right.
But people just don't realize it, and they've never even given it thought. And so, it's always a tough situation, and there are some kids that, might want to go play at a, you have the other side of it where some kids, the reality of it is their playing ability is not that great, and they could go D3 and maybe play, or their academics are so good that they could just go ahead and go to a A&M or somewhere else and start pursuing, life beyond baseball. And unfortunately, some of them still hold on to that baseball thing and not kind of put academics above the baseball. Some are fortunate enough to be able to combine both and go to a school, go to the best, use that sport to get the best possible education possible. But that doesn't always work out that way. And so you have to kind of step back and take a very real look at what's in your best interest and what's available. And again, it gets back to, being educated on what's out there and what's available.
Yeah, and as you're making these choices and you're doing your homework, you got to understand that they're not all glamorous. And it's no matter where you choose. Remember, in baseball, it's the top 5 to 6% of high school athletes will go on to play college baseball. That's not a big percentage, and everybody's good. And when you get to these programs from D1, there's a lot of fanfare, and it's really pretty special. But there's a grind, and they work them hard. And that's same at D2 and D3. And then when you get to JUCO, it's a whole nother level of grind because there aren't the limitations on practicing, and you've got to really want to be there. There's not a lot of glamour in JUCO, and it's a different environment. So you really got to want to be there and have that mindset. As Kevin said, there's a place, if you're good enough, there's a place for you to play, but it may not be your top 3. So you got to be flexible if you want to set those goals and do your homework, do the research, and figure out the right places for you as a player. So now let's talk more about the player, Kevin. So what skills does a player need to possess to be on a college scout's radar?
That's every coach is different out there and what they're looking for, but I think that they're looking for, they're looking for a competitor, and two of the things that we always tell our kids here at all ages is, hey, just show up with a good attitude and good effort, and we'll focus on the rest when it comes to developing you and teaching you the right things. But if you show up and you're not of the right mindset, you're not going to give forth the effort, regardless of what we try to teach you. It's not going to work. And so I think when a college coach goes out there, obviously they're looking for a certain talent level, but are you a competitor? Or can you deal with adversity? A lot of times I hear it so many times, regardless of the level you're at, is, hey, when you're 3 for 3, that's easy to watch you, right? I know you can do that. I know what you're capable of. But when you're 0 for 3 with 3 punch outs, and you kick the ball in the infield, how are you going to handle that? Or are you going to overcome that? You're going to hang your head. You're going to, how's that going to affect you? How are you going to deal with that adversity? And the other thing is, are you a good teammate? That's one thing that we've instilled, and not only my kids alone, but, just kids in general, that any kid that I've ever coached, is be a good teammate. Nobody likes that one kid where, everybody's over here celebrating and you got that one kid pouting at the end of the dugout because he didn't get a hit that game, and there's no I in team, as everybody says. So I think it's it just kind of, coaches are looking for the kids that can play. They're looking for the right fit for their organization. When I say the right fit, what position they're looking for at that time and what they have, what the needs they have from a program standpoint. But, there's certain characteristics that every coach looks for, and every coach is a little bit different. But I think you always find the ones that want the competitors, the ones that are, they're team guys, they're leaders, they're go-getters, all that type of stuff. So that's, for the most part, what sticks out, I think, to most coaches is, are you running on and off the field? Are you having fun? Bottom line, are you enjoying? Do you look like you're enjoying being out there, or do you sometimes look like you're just miserable? And I was guilty of it as a kid. You have your ups and downs, but I think it's as a coach now that I've been doing this for a long time, and even when I was in pro ball coaching as a hitting coach, man, I was trying to keep. I say kids, some of them are kids, but some of them are grown men. It's like trying to keep them in a positive mindset, right? It's so easy to be negative in a game full of failure, just trying to keep kids in a positive mindset, and just keep plugging along, with that positive mindset, regardless of how down you feel right now. You could be 0 for 3 with 3 strikeouts and come up with the game on the line. And if you're still sulking about those 3 punch outs, you don't probably have a good chance. But if you're able to turn the page, which is extremely difficult to do, and possibly get that hit, well, now you're not thinking about the 3 punch outs. You're just celebrating the fact that you got the game winning hit. So I think it's just a matter of how you handle things more so than not just the success, but how you handle failure and how you deal with adversity and stuff like that sticks out to coaches.
That is great advice and great perspective for every prospective, athlete that wants to play beyond high school. So well stated. What advice would you give to a player to take ownership of their own recruiting process? And you gave great insight into creating and establishing a player resume. I think that's a great first step. But what other things should they be doing to build relationships with coaches to get them interested?
Well, I think it's nobody likes the kid that sits back and doesn't really talk a lot. I was that kid. I didn't talk a lot. I never had any questions. But I think now as a coach, on the flip side of it is the kid that asks the questions and shows a genuine interest in the program, in what you're doing. Hey, what are your goals as an organ? And it's like, whoa, like, okay, this he's come prepared. Somebody's coached him up, which is great. But I think that again, it gets back to kind of creating that player resume and you doing the research on your own. I think one of the best things, when my oldest went to Episcopal was with Coach Fox. We knew what we were getting into with Coach Fox, and we had known him in the past, and that he's going to be a great not only a great coach, but a great mentor to my kids. Leading Bible studies and just focused on them off the field as well. But right from the get-go, it was, parents, I don't want to hear from you. I want to hear from your kid. And so there's a huge accountability factor there, right? And if little Johnny's sick and he can't make it to school, well, I don't want to hear from you. I want to hear from little Johnny, even if he's sick. Say, Coach, I'm sick. I'm out. I'm going to be out today. Or, Coach, I've got homework to make up. Like that communication has to be done by the kids. There's no communication from the parents. And that puts a lot of times parents don't like hearing that, right? But, it's part of your kids, process of maturing and growing up and being accountable and because when time comes and you do go to college, and whether you're an athlete or not, and you got to handle a tough conversation with your professor, what are you going to do? Call your parents and have them do it? No, so it's teaching the kids to grow up, at an early age and have difficult conversations. It's nothing better than a kid coming to you and it being a very tough conversation and you knowing that, but also kind of, you got to respect him because he's taken ownership of the fact that, hey, I want to pursue college baseball, and so I'm writing to you and reaching out to you almost like a pest. I tell kids a lot, like, hey, be like a pest. Every Monday you're in that coach's inbox, hey coach, it's me again, and if they have interest, but, at least it's not going to be because a lack of effort on your part. But, sometimes you won't even get a response. And then on that sixth time, you might get a response from that coach. But also you never know where that coach might end up. He might be at one school this year, but at another school next year. And it wasn't a good fit that first year, but now it is a good fit because of where he's at. So I think it's just a matter of being consistent, as a student athlete. If you want to pursue athletics at the next level, you have to be consistent. You have to be determined to get your name out there and because again, there is a fit. It's just finding that fit. Right. And it's difficult. It's extremely difficult. And sometimes you need a lot of help. You need a lot of luck and you need a lot of prayers answered. And it's not impossible. It's just, it's going to take an incredible amount of work on the student athlete and also the parents.
Yeah. It's, you said it so well. And it's absolutely on the player to own their recruiting process and own those communications, right? And that's what you said is have the conversations, ask good questions. And, one thing I'll add, having recently gone through this with my son Jackson, is there's going to be communications coming to your player in all types of formats. It could be a text message. It could be a phone call. It could be a DM in Twitter. And what's most important is the player has to respond to each message received in an appropriate, honest way. Never blow off a coach that has sent you a message or left you a voicemail. Always get back to them and be truthful with your interest level. And you'll never know what you don't know. And I can tell you with the junior college that Jackson ended up at was through a coach identifying him via Twitter and then seeing him play and then pursuing him. And we really had no interest in JUCO. But at the end of the day, after we had all the conversations with different mid-major D1s and different D3 programs, ultimately JUCO was the right choice. But it was a non-traditional. It didn't start with a phone call, and it was amazing how it all progressed and watched it happen. So but Jackson owned it, and he had all the conversations, and he was open and communicated with all the coaches consistently. And was honest in all of the conversations, because every coach that's calling wants you to come and play for them. But you got to be open and honest with them and let them know how you're feeling and what you're thinking. And there will be multiple conversations and it's great how it all ends, but it's a crazy process for sure. So great advice, Kevin.
Absolutely.
So a big deal that's going on now is showcase events. And they can be incredibly expensive, right? If you're looking at Perfect Game, you've got Prep Baseball Report out there that's a little more affordable. But I mean, literally, you could spend your entire bank account on having your son play in baseball showcases throughout the summer, fall, spring. They're all year round. What's your perspective on a player participating in showcases?
They're not needed for the most part. We live in Texas. We play in Texas. It's a hotbed for baseball. Bottom line is you can play. There are some rare showcases that you might need to go do. There's some high academic showcases that are really good for high academic kids. There's I think there's every now and then there's a need for it. Do you need to go play in everything you get invited to? Absolutely not. Tanner never played in I never sent him to a showcase because I refused to pay, when it's all said and done, $2,000 for him to go out there and, hit a few times and, throwing them out. I think showcases, they're not needed, and a lot of people might disagree with me. There might be some kids up north that might not get to play as much, and they might be able to go to some of these showcases to be seen because their schedule is a little different than us down here. We get to play a lot more baseball. So there could be a little more of a need from certain kids that live in certain areas that don't get, exposed to as much play as we do. But still, I don't think they're necessary. I don't think it's worth the money. I used to always get a kick out of the fact that, we'd get an email for Tanner saying, congratulations, you're a preseason All-American. We're like, oh, okay, great. Well, the fact that we didn't pay X amount of dollars to go participate in their All-American showcase, well, we weren't an All-American anymore, which is completely fine, right? But it's just funny, like, oh, well, now that we didn't pay to come do your thing, we're no longer a preseason All-American, which that's okay. We're not really worried about your rankings anyways. And so the bottom line is the rankings are all, there's kids ranked higher on some rankings than others because, well, guess what? They go to they spend a lot of money and go to these rankings. And I find it ironic that a lot of times there's no kid ever gets a bad evaluation from a showcase, which, not every kid that goes to these showcases is a stud, and it's a money grab, and they do a very good job of advertising it and making you feel like you're really missing out. And if you're a parent not knowing or understanding or educated on that, you're going to feel like you're missing out, and you're going to feel like that you need to spend that money to go do it. And quite frankly, you just don't need to. And that's my take on it. And a lot of people might, think that's a not a very good take on it, but that's just the reality of it, and that's just what I think. And there's probably a lot more people that agree with me than disagree with me. It's there might be a rare fit every now and then for certain kids, but I also think that that's a lot of time where kids go out there and get hurt because they're in that showcase. They get on the mound and they see all these radar guns pop up behind the plate, and they're trying to throw as hard as they can. And it's not beneficial. Or the shortstop, the kid in the infield taking 4 crow hops and throwing the ball as hard as he can, and it goes over the first baseman's head and over the dugout. Yet, he threw 91 across the diamond. It's all irrelevant, and seeing a kid, bottom line is coaches are going to see kids playing a game, and they're going to make their assessments there. And it's nice to see some kids take BP here and there, but a lot of it I think is not necessary. It's either the player's ego or the parent's ego, and they want to see their kid ranked a certain, at a certain number. And then, of course, the more money you spend, the better your kid's ranking is probably going to go up. But I have some buddies that work for those organizations and guys I've played with in the past that run those organizations. And I'm not a believer in them. I just don't really, they're great. When you go to them, they're great. It's a wonderful experience for the kids, and you get all kinds of gear and get treated great and all that stuff. And you get to see how you stand up against, some of your peers. I think that might be the only benefit is how you really stand up against some of the other kids that are out there. But then again, we live in Texas, so we can do that on a weekly basis. We can either stay here in Houston and play in a tournament, or go to Austin or go to Dallas, and we're still playing against the top kids, in the state, if or region, or if not the country. And so
Kevin, it's great perspective, and it's you're saying the truth, and that they do have a purpose. And I with my boys, we had a plan, and we stuck to the plan regarding showcases. And, the way I looked at it, I assessed both the big ones out there, Perfect Game and Prep Baseball Report. And from my perspective, I just said, okay, Prep Baseball Report is a third of the cost. And I said, what we're going to do is we're going to go to one event a year and just see how you progress. And, you get that benefit of the pro style workout, and you get validated measurements for, all the key measurables that are important in baseball. And it worked out well. I can honestly say it was nice to have, my boys enjoyed participating in them on a limited basis. And they got to, meet some great people. And as you said, it was a great experience, but we didn't overdo it. And, they really didn't assist in the recruiting process at all, other than the fact that they were, validated statistics, outside of high school, which was a good thing to have. But
a lot of times those coaches that are there, they're going to see you anyways, and
yep.
Like I said, there's a fine line, there's a lot of people that have the money and they're going to go to everything under the moon, and hey, that's great. If that's the way you want to spend your money and you think that's what's best for your kids, do it. Or the flip side of it is there's people that, can't afford it and would love to send their kid to it, but they're not sure if it's really worth it. And I just honestly don't think it's worth it in the long run. And if your kid can, and it gets back to being in the right organization, that knowing that you have coaches that are looking out for your kid's best interest. And it's not really needed to go to that showcase, because they can pick up the phone and call some college coaches and get your kid, the look when that time comes.
Well, that's the biggest truth, is that the baseball community is a very small community. It seems like every coach knows every coach, especially when you get to the college level, whether it's, JUCO all the way to D1, they all know each other, and it's this network. And odds are your player is going to get an opportunity in college based on what his high school or summer coaches communicate to those other coaches. And, word travels fast about players that can play, that are looking for a place to play. So
absolutely,
I agree with everything you've said, Kevin. Oh, so you've observed and coached literally thousands of players. Are there any common themes that you're seeing from the players that do play college baseball versus those that do not?
I think first thing that sticks out is the work ethic. Work ethic is something I think that's tough to teach, but there's some kids that are just, they're just built different. And so I think the work ethic goes a long way. That's on the field, that's off the field, that's, putting in that extra work when nobody's looking, right? And that's very, very hard to find. It's very rare. But I think that's the most consistent thing that you see is that work ethic's there. And yeah, they have talent. And the flip side of that is there's some kids that, aren't the most talented, but that their work ethic is through the roof, and that's what takes them to the next level. And it just takes a special, not only a special talent, but just a special person to be able to have that opportunity to go play at that level. And I think there's a kind of a self-evaluation, a self-worth, the confidence to have, as well as what you can and can't do. I know when I got drafted and got shipped off to, Medicine Hat, Alberta, and I was on my own, it's there was some self-doubt there. There was, man, am I really, am I this good? Can I compete out here with these guys? I say guys, I was 18 and there was, 25-year-old guys at some places I was playing or in spring training and stuff. You're going up against guys that are way older than you. And it's tough. And so I think that, as you progress, I think it gets back to kind of like what you said is you never wanted your kids to be the best kids on the team and always kind of having something to fight for and always pushing you to get better. And I was a big believer of that too. I never wanted my kid to be the best on the team, and having a good supporting cast around him and learning to be a good teammate and all that stuff. It's no fun being, good best player on the team, but nobody else around you is any good, that's not really any fun. But what are you going to do about that situation? Are you going to pout and moan, or are you going to try to lift up your teammates and make them better as well? So
well said. Love it. Really good. So Kevin, we got freshman and sophomore players out there. They really want to play college baseball. They're not receiving any interest at all at this point in time. What advice can you offer to those players?
Well, that's completely normal. There's only so many freshmen and sophomores currently that are getting contacted by coaches, and those are the elite of the elite. But the reality of it is there's a ton out there that aren't getting any recognition at all because, it's kind of like that pecking order, right? Division I, most of their kids, they commit, a little sooner, or have to make their decision a little sooner, and then the D2s follow through, and then the D3s, and then everything else kind of sorts out. But it's completely normal as a freshman and sophomore not to be contacted, and it's completely normal, guess what, to be contacted by a lot of schools and not commit as a freshman and sophomore. Enjoy the process if you are one of those big time prospects, and talk to everybody, because you just don't know where people are going to end up, and you don't know how you're going to develop as a player. But, as the freshmen and sophomores that aren't getting any contact right now, you have to, just kind of trust the process and continue to put in the work, because, ultimately it might not happen until right at your senior year, or just before or during your senior year. And it happens all the time, and it's okay. It's just trust the process, keep doing what you're doing, reach out to coaches. And it's really just the pecking order. And it's the process of when coaches are looking at certain, graduating classes, and most of them aren't even thinking about the freshmen and sophomores. Again, there's the rare ones that are the elite of the elite. But it is completely normal if you're a freshman or sophomore not to be contacted right now by college coaches, and just trust the process, and there will be an opportunity down the road, hopefully, if your ability and your work ethic continue to grow.
Perfectly stated, Kevin. That is a great answer. And everybody out there, if you know someone who is a freshman and sophomore and wants to play college baseball, make sure they hear this, because that is great perspective and great advice. Don't panic. Just get in the weight room, take care of business, get bigger, faster, stronger, and it'll all work out. All right. So, Kevin, this is the big scholarship insight. So all parents, all kids dream of the full ride athletic scholarship to a D1 program. Unfortunately, with only 11.7 scholarships available in D1, that rarely happens. What insights can you provide in the real world of baseball scholarships?
Make exceptional grades. That way you can get that academic scholarship. That would make things a whole lot easier. But no, it's unfortunately there's only 11.7 scholarships available, and the coaches have to get very creative on how they divvy that up. And quite honestly, it's a business, especially at these, major Division I schools. It's a business, and they have to every year kind of restructure how all that's divvied up. And a lot of times it ends up in some good players ending up with getting cut and being told that, hey, we don't have a spot for you. So I think it's it's so hard in today's game to again, when you are offered, making sure exactly what that offer entails, what it means, because it can be tricky at times, but also exhaust all avenues as to how I can qualify for money to that school, whether it's academically, financially, athletically, and hopefully a lot of times the coaches are very knowledgeable in that, because if they really want you, they're going to find the different ways to get creative on how to get you there. So just, again, it's being educated on what all is out there. What do I qualify for as a student athlete? What does my family qualify for? All the stuff like that. And until you've exhausted all those resources, you'll see that there are a lot of other opportunities for you. But, bottom line is every year it's almost like coaches are, they lose kids to the draft. Now they lose kids to the transfer portal. So they're at all these big Division I schools, they're bringing in, extra players. And they'll sort them out when the time comes. And unfortunately, the timing of it isn't very good, but that's the nature of the business these days and what these guys got to do. It's unfortunate, but it's the reality. And you have to understand that going into it. A lot of them probably think that, it's not going to happen to my kid. He was told this, he was told that. Well, come that fall or going into the spring, then you're sitting around looking at each other going, oh, geez, now what do we do? So it's very tough in today's game. You see it happen a lot. It's going to happen, but I think it's also preparing the parents that it could happen. Kind of a worst case scenario type thing is just always have a plan B and a plan C. And, even then it's tough. So, just again, finding that fit is sometimes you feel like you're in a perfect situation and then it falls through at the very end. But that's why it's important to always keep your options open and understand what each of those options brings to the table.
Yeah, Kevin, very well said. The reality of the full ride baseball scholarship in D1 baseball is really fiction. It does happen. It does definitely happen, but that's the exception. In today's D1 world, most players, I think it's safe to say, most players are paying for a portion of their school. In some cases, a significant portion. Those that are not, as you stated, are really leveraging academic money because they were outstanding students. And, for everybody listening out there that wants to, get a scholarship athletically to college, there is a lot more money available in baseball for athletics. I'm sorry, for academics than there is for athletics. And that 11.7 just doesn't go real far. So Kevin outlined it. Spend time in the books, keep your grades up, and that will definitely enhance your scholarship opportunity if you're talented enough. Okay, Kevin. So now we've got the high school player who's got an offer and has accepted an offer to play baseball at a school somewhere, any level. So they're committed to play college baseball, but they've not yet set foot on campus. What advice would you give them now in order to be prepared when they step on campus?
I would say that the hard work's just beginning. You've made that commitment, but that there's no guarantees. And, all the way up until the time you sign that, national letter of intent, that's great and all. But then once you get to campus in the fall, if let's just say you commit as a sophomore or you commit, as a junior and you just shut it down because you don't feel like you really need to put in the work, you don't have that hunger, you don't have that drive anymore to really, get to that level to where, you want to play college baseball. Oh, well, I've made my commitment, my verbal commitment. Well, that doesn't really mean anything. And I think that even once you do, the work never stops, so even up until that point where you do arrive on campus, now the hard part really begins. It's going out there and being able to compete and understanding, I know both my boys went through it, especially Tanner, trying to be a two-way at Texas. And he's like that. He's like, it's exhausting, handling the academic workload. And this was during COVID, so he was handling the academic workload of a Division I student, and then the athletic workload and what that entails, getting up and going to weights and all that stuff. And so, at the time during COVID, they weren't allowed as athletes to even go and really just hang out anywhere. So, it wasn't like he was experiencing the full lifestyle of a Division I athlete, other than being a student and all the Zoom classes, and then going to the field and the athletic portion. But, it's extremely taxing, extremely difficult. And if you're not prepared how to time manage, you're going to really scuffle. And that's just kind of off the field, let alone just what you're trying to do on the field. But I would just say that, the work never stops, and you got to continue working regardless of whether you're a freshman or a sophomore or a junior. And when you make that commitment, you've made a verbal commitment, but hey, if you don't put in the work, they can take back what, that commitment. There's no guarantees there. And even then, once you step foot on campus, there's no guarantees. You're there now. What are you going to do? Are you going to compete? You're going to go out there, and continue to be that the competitor and the athlete that we saw and expressed interest in, and the reason you're here. But a lot of times there's kids that, either don't put in the work and it shows. And like you said earlier, it's once you get there, there's some tremendous athletes, and there's some very gifted and talented players, at all levels, but especially at the Division I major colleges. So the work never stops, and it's tough. It's a very demanding schedule, and even if you have aspirations of doing it professionally, it even gets harder. And not only that, you're doing it as a job. So if you don't perform, guess what? You're gonna get fired. So I just think it's you got to have an amazing work ethic. You got the work. It never stops, and you just got to continue that work ethic, regardless of wherever you're at in that process.
Kevin, that's really great insight. And, it just circles back to what we talked about in part 2 of the work you're doing at Spring Spirit of developing the whole person, right? And I've always called that having balance between mind, body, and spirit. And, when you get to that campus and you're in that athletic program and everybody's good, and one thing's for sure in baseball, it's a unique sport where you're definitely going to face adversity. You get to bat. If you're successful in your at bats 3 out of 10 times, you have a good chance of making the Hall of Fame as a professional. But that means you failed 7 out of 10 times. The game beats you up, and that's where that balance of mind, body, and spirit come into play. And that's really that difference of that athlete that's succeeding at that next level, is able to deal with that adversity and those times when you're not having success. But as you talked about earlier, you're having fun on the field, and you're being a good teammate, and you're doing all those things that are beyond the performance on the field that ultimately makes a difference, and that what makes you a highly valuable asset for the coach of the program. So really, really well said.
And it's a good point. We actually have, our Spring Spirit here, it's to focus on the mind, body, and soul. And so it's funny you said that, and the bottom line is we're trying to empower the youth and build futures. And so, it's tremendous. It's been a great, experience for me here at Spring Spirit. And I've been able to implement just things I've learned throughout the course of my career, as a player and as a, professional coach and in all these years, and kind of taking things from every coach that I've come across over the years and really just kind of bring it all to fruition now and pass it on to the next generation, whether it's here at Spring Spirit or through other avenues.
Kevin, so good. All right, now we're just going to get to know you a little more personally. We're going to move into our rapid fire brains and brawn segment, and I'm going to ask you five quick questions, and you give me 5 quick answers. So here we go. What's your favorite movie?
The Natural.
Great choice. What's your greatest accomplishment?
My family.
I would agree with that. What is a goal that you are still chasing?
Ooh, wow. I don't have a quick one for that. I think just being impactful, making an impact, regardless of with my family, internally with my family or, in the community, providing an impact or providing a service within the community.
Well, you're definitely in the right job at Spring Spirit to be pursuing and chasing that goal. Great job. Okay, if you could spend the day with anyone, past or present, who would that be?
I would say, man, that's a tough one, man. Sorry, these are supposed to be quick, but it would might be just maybe one of my grandfathers or grandparents, just somebody that's passed away that, they passed away when I was younger, so didn't really get to spend a lot of time with them. So it wouldn't be just one. I'm going to be greedy and ask for multiple. And hopefully that they would have been able to experience being around my kids and witness them grow up a little bit. So, just be, just some family members that have passed on and just being able to kind of them to see what I've grown into today.
Really cool. Great choice. Okay. Where is your favorite place to travel or visit?
Wow. I referenced it before, but Japan was such a cool place to go. Who would have ever thought I was able to go to Japan, much less to play a game there that I love, and take my family there and experience it. So there's a lot of fun memories that we had there, but somewhere tropical never disappoints either.
Very good. Very good. Well, Kevin, as we wrap up, this will end up being the third part of our 3-part series on your life in baseball. Do you have any final thoughts for our audience?
No, just I really appreciate you having me on. It's 3 parts, but I feel like we could have gone on forever. I'm just passionate about helping kids and passionate about baseball, obviously, but helping kids and helping parents realize the possibilities of what's out there. And baseball has provided a lot for me, over the years. And I'm just trying to give back to the next generation of kids and that love the game. And not only the ones that, love baseball, but, just trying to make an impact in kids' lives and for the better. And so, if you are an athlete pursuing an opportunity to play in college, just enjoy the process. It can be overwhelming. It can be stressful. But the bottom line is you're searching for the best fit for your kids to develop and grow into outstanding human beings. And that's the ultimate goal.
Well, Kevin, you are definitely one of the best in the world at what you do. I want to thank you again for this memorable conversation. I appreciate your insights, and I'm sure our listeners will as well. If any of our listeners would like to connect with you, what are the best ways to do so?
Just go to our website, springspirit.org, or like I said, you can reach out to me via email, kevin.witt@springspirit.org, and I'll be more than happy to be available for any type of conversation that I can help you with.
Oh, that's fantastic. And for our listeners, I'll also put Kevin's contact information on the Brawny Conversations webcast page as well. So his information will be listed there. Well, that's a wrap for today's Brawny Conversations podcast. Special thanks to our guest, Kevin Witt. And I also want to thank each of you for choosing to listen to this podcast. New episodes are posted each week, so please remember to follow us and let us help you shorten your learning curve. Have a great day, everyone.
You have been listening to the Brawny Conversations podcast. Thank you for choosing to spend time with us today, and please subscribe to the podcast to receive our latest episodes and give us a follow on social media. New episodes are now in production, and we can't wait to share them with you. Pursue your passions and help others along the way. Have a great day, and thank you for listening.